Men of Reddit, what's your creepy girl story? Once, an acquaintance added me on FB. When I clicked on her profile, it said she was in a relationship with someone. That someone was a fake account of me with my picture. She knew you would see it upon accepting the FR. I feel like that makes it 10x more f***ing creepy. Dude, let me tell you a story. People think stuff like this is hot and sexy. Cause they weren't there. I was 20-21 virgin guy. I was raised in a super conservative Christian family. I was still spanking it though. But was a bit shy of girls. Especially cause I went to all boys school most of my life. Now this one time I was going to work by catching the bus at the station. And this girl who if you see her think she is 19. But she was 13. She was ugly. Obese. Smelly and nasty. Anyways, I sat next to her since it was the only seating that was available. She was drawing something and told me, "I'm drawing you. Cause I think you're hot." And she asked me, "Do you know what friends with benefits mean?" I'm a military brat who just returned to the US. So my English was not that strong. So I said no. She was eating a piece of bread or something and leaned towards me and kissed me, with tongue. F***ing A. Wet crumbs got in my mouth. Dude. I stood up. Went to the bathroom and started throwing up. Girl in my dorm. She had a crush on my roommate. My roommate clearly didn't like and told her several times. Things got out of hand and there were times where my roommate would come running back to the room yelling lock the door. Lock the door, and moments later the girl and her friend would try to come barge in without permission. What's creepy is this next part. Apparently one night we accidentally left our room unlocked and she decided to sneak in and play rub our heads. We didn't wake up, but her roommate told us what she did a couple days later. I haven't seen her in about a year and I'm quite glad. This younger girl who I never even spoke to once in high school had a crush on me. I got a note from her in my locker asking if I wanted to go out with her. I had no idea of how to get it back to her. So I just wrote no and taped it to my locker. Then she started following me everywhere. I would try to talk to her, but she would just keep walking away, pretending I wasn't talking to her. This goes on for like 2 years. Then I was hanging out by myself one day around the neighborhood. And she comes walking up with 3 guys who wanted to kick my ass for some dumb unrelated stuff. She somehow found out about it and brought them to me. After an embarrassing scene with me diffusing the situation with these angry gentlemen, they leave. And she finally sits down on the curb right next to me and starts flirting. All I could do was just stare at her enormous bangs with a WTF expression until she got embarrassed and left. I was bored once at a small local festival and didn't want to be there, so I just got a drink and started walking around aimlessly when I noticed a fire breather. The display was interesting and she was pretty hot. When she was on break she went to get a drink and we started talking. She seemed nice. We had a laugh, but her break was up and she resumed her display, so I left her to it and continued to wander around. 5 minutes later security was called to her display. Turns out some crazy girl whom I had never met before was following me around the festival and assaulted the fire breather. She had claimed that me and Crazy, were together and fire breather was trying to break us up. Not a guy myself, but one I dated had a couple fun stories. One was a girl he got set up with by friends on a blind date. As they went out to dinner, they passed a jewelry store. And she insisted on going in so they could pick out rings for when they get engaged. He paid for dinner and noped right out. The second one went better until he took her back to her place, where she went to the kitchen, pulled a nice big, sharp chef's knife, and told him he was staying the night. He said, "I did what any red-blooded American male would do." Agreed, but said I needed to go to the bathroom, where I promptly crawled out the window and never saw her again. Double quote. I was like 13-14 years old. Was playing Gaia Online, some lame social networking game from like 2002, and met some girl. We hit it off and started chatting over AIM. Definitely did the cringy cybering thing too. Well, eventually she comes clean that she's actually like late 20s. Like 28 or something. Being a HRNY 14-year-old dude. That didn't bother me one bit. So then we start video chatting and she's like fully masturbating on cam with me. Again. 14-year-old me is not seeing an issue with this. Eventually she starts talking about coming to visit so we can actually have sex. Again, not seeing the issue beyond the fact that she really was not very attractive, but even still I didn't think she was serious until she emails me a copy of her flight itinerary. At this point I panicked and blocked her. Deleted my AIM and stayed away from the computer for like 6 months and never heard from her again. Met a girl online. We chat and set up a date. Date goes fine, she's a little weird. A little sheltered but seems nice. Not much chemistry, but I think that can take some time, so we give it another go, have a second date. Confirm I have no interest in a relationship with this girl on the second date, so we talk it out, no hard feelings, let's be friends. Fast forward 5 years, I'm in my kitchen with some friends getting ready to go out for my birthday dinner when we hear a knock on the door. I go check and no one is there, but there is a box with my name on it. There is a card and some gifts, which would be nice if this girl had ever been to my house before. I had moved since our 2 dates and still have no idea how she found me. During my last year of high school I would tutor students after school. One day about halfway through the year a new girl came in and sat next to me. The first thing she said was something along the lines of, "Do you wanna see my birth control?" She had an implant in her arm and showed me where it was. She then felt my arm and told me I was hairy. For the rest of the time she kept prying for personal info like who my friends were and where I lived. I didn't see her in tutoring after that. But one day during lunch she came up to my table where I was just chatting with my friends and inserted herself into the conversation before leaving randomly. I heard a few days later that she was suspended for either having drugs or a knife in her backpack. In elementary school there was a new Spanish girl who had a crush on me and would literally be non-stop staring at me and following me. Me and my friends tested it. In class they would look and see she'd be staring at me. In recess we went to the very far corner of the field and she followed. So I went back to the school wall and she followed. So I told the teachers and they finally got her to stop following me. She disappeared a few days later. Nobody knew where she went. I started going to a new doctor. The receptionist was cute. So I flirted a bit. In a waiting room. With other patients around. It was pretty innocent. She reciprocated. I figured it was all in good fun. She escalated a bit. Stuff like scheduling me for days she was there. Calling me directly with reminders. Etc. Then she went into the records. Got my cell number. And started texting me. Telling me she wants to meet up. She's not happy with her husband. They never have sex anymore. Etc. I noped out as fast as I could. A few months ago. I was walking home from school when this drunk middle-aged woman grabbed me by the arm. Wrapped me in a bear hug against a wall. And started grinding on me. I wasn't interested. I had an exam the next morning. And I was just trying to get home. She wouldn't let me go. And she forced my hands onto her breasts and in between her legs. Luckily this was over clothes. She also started punching me for no reason, as well as doing extremely racist Asian stereotypes. I'm Asian. Eventually. I got away, but I've never fully recovered from the experience and I've basically never been able to talk about it with IRL friends. Doubt I ever will. Edit. Oh yeah. There was someone there who walked by who could have helped me. Instead, he turned away and got out of there quickly. He saw that I was uncomfortable and signaling for help. But he did nothing. Our high school basketball team had a female student manager. When we had games at other schools, she would always come up with a reason to need to get something in the locker room when we were showering. But we were so used to her. I guess no one said anything? Coaches probably should have stepped in there. It was when I was back in school. There was this girl who used to sit just behind my seat. She was good looking but was very distant from everybody and talked with nobody. Her social skills was zero. But I tried talking to her. We get to know each other. I thought we became friends. We started sitting on the same seat. One day she said, "I know why you're friend with me." I said, "Why?" She says, "You want this, right?" Then she pulls her skirt slightly up and panty down and showed me the PSSY whose image is imprinted in my memory. We were 16 by the way. Then she giggles. I looked at her exhibition and then back into her eyes. I could see a psychotic smile on her face. She was the creepiest girl I've ever met in my entire life. This girl followed me home after a date and stayed outside my house, and when I came out the next morning and acted like it was so funny, we bumped into each other. I told her I will call the cops and she ran. Not a man but the creepy girl. My dad told me that when I was little and had something bothering me at night, I would sneak up to him and stare at him until he woke up. He described my white nightgown, plushie and the moonlight lantern light hitting me as very unsettling. My son would do that shit all to me all the time when he was little. Just in that almost asleep period. One time I just saw a shape next to me and I screamed. And he woke up and ran to his room screaming. Another time he walked in on my wife and I having sexy time with the lights on. He just started laughing and walked back to his room. I was so glad when he stopped sleepwalking. We were kids. Early teens. I thought she was mad cute. She was telling me how once she pushed a boy she liked off the swings and he broke his arm. She was bragging about it. And she liked me now. Cool. I thought. I will now proceed to never see you again. Started dating a girl who lived like an hour away, so we only saw each other occasionally. One day when I'm out, she decides to drive to my home and gets my roommate to let her into my room, where she proceeds to stick those glow-in-the-dark stars literally all over my room. And then leaves. I come home after being at a party where there was liquor and weed and my roommate is asleep, so doesn't tell me anything. Lay in bed still drunk and high. Click off the lights and proceeded to think I was losing my mind because I couldn't tell if I was inside or outside looking at the night sky. Roommate didn't tell me until the next day. A random guy at the bar called her friend a SLT and ran off. I guess I looked enough like him. So I got 3 haymakers to the face. I managed to avoid boxing a female in a public bar, which was my goal. And things seemed to subside. She later cornered me in the shitter. It was a single person shitter. I guess I forgot to lock the door. I was informed that I should leave with her and got back to her place or I would be accused of some pretty heinous shit. The bartender saw her on the prowl and sent the bouncer after. He told her to FCK off and not come back. On her way out, things got racial. Big words were flying. I was an N-word lover. There were sand N-words everywhere. All of us were remanded to the countries of our origin. She was waiting on the street when I left and tried to follow me. But I just jogged away and she tripped and started crying. It was tragic. Yet also funny. I once was hanging out with someone. We were on a getting to know each other phase. Nothing exclusive. I showed her a magic trick. For me it was a very simple magic trick. After the magi trick she started to freak out, saying that she was not into witch stuff or black magic. I tried to explain to her that it was just a simple trick. Since then I got a weird vibe. After that I guess my spidey senses were more active since then, and I decided to tell her that I rather not continue the relationship since I started to notice patterns that I didn't like. Not so much as the girl herself but to her mom. I dated this girl back in high school and I went over to her house a few times just to hang out and such. But her mom made me incredibly uncomfortable by asking a billion different questions about my past relationships, my intentions with her daughter, even when I last looked at porn, etc. etc. She had to be in the same room as us at all times. She also had complete control over my girlfriend's phone as well, so she monitored every single message her and I sent back and forth. Obviously due to this, that relationship didn't last long. Girl was hitting on me at a bar. I was pretty dismissive and finally she said, "Oh, I'll let you buy me a drink." I responded saying I was married and please leave me alone. She called me a pig and stormed off, and later in the night we caught her following us to another club. Threatened to call the police on her and she stopped. I was living in New Orleans and this older woman grabbed my nuts from behind. I naturally freaked out. And she laughed and went, "Oh, it's this game we're playing, WTF kind of game is that?" I was so shocked I kinda just walked away. The molesting game. That's what it was. Disgusting old woman. I went to a house party in undergrad with a friend. We were in our other friend's bedroom so we could look through his collection of music downloaded from Napster. This is 2003. I was sitting at the computer cycling through the music when a girl I didn't know who was also at the party started dancing next to me, so I stood up and danced with her as well. About 30 seconds of that. Then she pushed me onto the bed and jumped on top of me. I was pretty drunk and I felt like I couldn't do anything. It felt like she was licking my face. I don't know how much time went by, probably only 15-20 seconds max. Eventually my friend I came with came back in and pulled her off me and took me home. The next day I found out she was a sorority sister with a friend of mine. Which boggled her mind that this girl would do this. Had a GF once and things were not really going well. So after repeatedly trying to talk to her and not getting my points across and her saying everything should stay as is, I broke up. It was around Easter time so my family and me were having a nice dinner etc. As I went to bed I checked my phone. 170-180 missed calls. I took screenshots and sent them to a friend of mine so I could get a witness to what had transpired. TLDR had a GF and she called me almost 200 times after breaking up in a matter of hours. My friend and me still laugh about it to this day. Was at a bar with a large group of friends when this girl who was not affiliated with our group came up to me and started unbuttoning my shirt. After a few buttons, she just slid her hands around my torso. I backed off and the girls in our friend group blocked her from coming into contact with me again. There was this girl who was a freshman when I was a senior. I had heard of her through friends and I met her once or twice. I guess she developed a crush on me. A mutual friend told me that she thought I liked her and I said it was a misunderstanding and that I was only interested in being friends. Next thing I know this girl is showing up at my work multiple times a shift, and when I go to sit out at my car on break she would come up and try to talk to me if I had my windows down. She was transferred to a school for people with problems and there she would take people's phones and try to call me, text me, or message me on social media. Eventually they stopped giving her access to technology and the text stopped. With the recent coronavirus and the closing of every school in my state, this girl was sent back to live with her dad and I saw her in my store the other day. I don't think she saw me and I hope she has moved on. I had a co-worker who was about 30 years older than me. We always got along and had good conversation. But she would sometimes just walk over to me and grab my hand and seductively suck on one of my fingers. It was always a what the FCK moment as I was 19 or 20, but it never really bothered me so I just let it happen. Looking back it's pretty creepy. I went out with some friends to watch a game at a bar. Once leaving to head back home as we are all walking out, this group of girls clearly hammered at like 11 in the morning walks in and beelines towards our group. One runs out and says you should come with me and jams her fingers straight up and into my armpit. It was pretty warm out so I was sweaty. And this girl takes her hand out after I move her arm away from me and then sniffs her fingers and winks at me. According to my friends, I have never had a more puzzled look on my face. At my school there is a womanless beauty pageant where a bunch of guys dress up like girls and do a talent show type thing. So I was in my sister's athletic clothes in one part and a two-piece dress the next time I walked out. After the show I was walking out to take pictures and some old lady, 50-60, stopped me and started talking about how muscular I looked on stage. And she said it like 6 times. But I'm 6'4" and only weigh 165. I'm a spaghetti noodle in human form. So someone's grandma likes drag queens and scrawny dudes. Edit. I have pictures if you need proof of a stick bug in a dress. I'm actually the creepy girl of the story. At 15 I had a massive crush, i.e. creepy infatuation, on a classmate from a class. Gave him a CD with Avril Lavigne's Fall to Pieces on it. He avoided me for a good year. I think I scared him off of women, or he's asexual. I'm not about to ask. Still awkward 15 years later. I was working at a grocery store when I was in high and this lady came up to me telling me she would love to have my children. Like she went on about how beautiful our kids would be. This made me extremely uncomfortable because I was 16 and I had never seen this woman in my life, but apparently she saw me a couple of times when she came into the store. Her excuse for saying it was because she loved my hair and skin color. I'm a light-skinned black dude with light brown hair. 6 years later I still think about how uncomfortable that shit made me feel. I was once someone's creepy girl story. Basically I used to drive by my boyfriend at the time, and even when he was my ex's house, and sometimes drop in unexpectedly to say hi for a few minutes and then leave. At least once he saw me go by and not stop. I just waved. He legitimately thought and asked if I might have been stalking him. I was too embarrassed to let him know that the only other route to my girlfriend's house had a roundabout and one-ways that I didn't know how to navigate. Girl I was casually seeing in college was hitting me up more than I wanted her to be. I told her things were done and that I wasn't interested in seeing her anymore. She waited outside of my work for me to get off and then chased me down on my bike to talk. After I told her how weird it was that she did that, she apologized. Then she was waiting outside one of my classes in a completely different major's hall. I was dating this goth chick and she had problems with depression. I was trying to call her one day and her phone kept ringing busy. Mid-90s before cell phones in every pocket. I jump in the car and ride over to her apartment. I had a key so I let myself in. There she was sitting in the middle of the floor holding a huge kitchen knife. She had cut open the couch, recliner and her mattress and pulled every bit of the stuffing out and was just sitting there in the middle of the stuffing holding the knife with a creepy smile on her face. I left my key on the table near the door and left. I never saw her again.